Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few pitchers I look to buy this week. The first guy, Chris Bassett of the New York Mets. Bassett, right now, pretty much the last big pitcher standing in this Met rotation, with obviously Jacob deGrom, who's been out the whole season, and Max Scherzer, who's been placed on the injured list last week, out 6 to 8 weeks on the season here for Bassett. 53 innings, 4-2 record, 48 hits given up, 23 earned runs, 16 walks, 53 strikeouts, and 4 quality starts on the season with a 3.91 ERA and a 1.21 whip. So Bassett last season, he was great with the Oakland Athletics. And so far this season, he's got off to a pretty decent start with the New York Mets. But the last few games here have been a little rocky for Bassett. May 14th versus Seattle, 5 2/3, 5 hits, a run, 3 walks, 8 Ks, no decision in that one. May 19th versus the Cardinals, 6 1/3, no decision, 9 hits, 4 runs, a walk, 3 Ks. And then May 24th at San Francisco in a crazy ball game with 25 runs scored combined from both teams. He went 4 1/3, he got destroyed, but no decision. 8 hits, 8 earned runs, 3 walks, and 4 Ks. So right here, the last 2 outings haven't been friendly for Chris Bassett. And right now, like I mentioned, he's the Mets ace until either Scherzer or deGrom comes back in the rotation here off their injury. So right now, while he's been hit hard in the last 2 outings here, is Bassett. And he's failed to go 7 innings or more since his May 2nd start. He's a perfect guy to go out there and get on the cheap, because I know he's a good pitcher. This Met team, they're still in first place in the NL East this season at 29-17, and he just hit a bump in the road a little bit. And his next outing's versus the Washington Nats, so after getting bombed in his last outing, this is a perfect time to go out there and get him while his value has dropped a little bit here as Bassett, and get him on your roster, because he's solid to have in your rotation as a 4th or 5th guy, or even more. He's got upside to be a 3rd starter on your fantasy roster. The next guy I look to go out there and buy this week here is Ian Anderson of the Atlanta Braves. So Anderson, I've mentioned him a lot over the last few weeks here as a guy to get on your roster. On the season here for Anderson, a mediocre year, 42 innings, 3-3 record, 37 hits, 19 runs, 20 walks, 31 strikeouts, and only 2 quality starts on the season here for Anderson with a 4.07 ERA and a 1.36 whip. So right here, this Brave team, maybe a little bit of a World Series hangover a little bit, but they're starting to play some baseball and starting to hit a little better over the last week and a half here. But Anderson, he really hasn't done much in the last few outings for him. May 11th versus Boston, 5 1/3, no decision, 7 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 4 Ks. May 16th versus at the Milwaukee Brewers, 6 innings, got the loss, 4 hits, a run, 2 walks, 3 Ks, a quality start. And May 22nd at the Marlins, 6 innings, got the loss in that one, 7 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 6 Ks. So Anderson, he's going about 5 1/3 to 6 innings a game. But he's just a guy that don't really go deeper than 6 innings. He's not getting many wins of late. He's failed to record a victory since May 4th at the New York Mets here. And he's given up a decent amount of hits. 18 hits in his last 3 games here is Anderson. So Anderson, his next outing is May 27th versus the Miami Marlins, and we'll see if he could turn things around. But right now, while he's not performing and he's not putting up great numbers, he's a guy I definitely would go out there and get, because he'll take him a couple starts to get back in the thick of things. And like I mentioned, if this Brave team starts hitting, their pitchers obviously will get more run support and more wins and even go deeper into games possibly. So he's definitely a pitcher I would go out there and get, because his upside is too good to be doing mediocre things so far this season. The next guy is Kyle Hendricks of the Chicago Cubs. So another pitcher who's pretty talented, but so far this season, he's been hit pretty hard in most of his outings. 53 2/3, 2-5 record, 54 hits, 31 runs, 18 walks, 36 strikeouts, and 2 quality starts with a 5.20 ERA and a 1.34 whip. So right here, the walks have definitely hurt Kyle Hendricks. And giving up the long ball as well has definitely been a problem for him. So right now, he's only owned in 54% of fantasy leagues. If he's on your waiver wire, I definitely would go out there and get him, because he's another guy who's talented. And he's also a player that could get traded at the Major League trade deadline to a contender And right there, he'd be perfect in a rotation for one of those teams where he could go out there, get good run support, and go deeper into ball games and not have so much pressure to keep it down to a low score. So the last few outings have been pretty bad here for Hendricks. May 14th at Arizona, 5 2/3, no decision. 5 hits, a run, 2 walks, 2 Ks. May 20th versus Arizona, 5 innings, got the loss, 8 hits, 7 runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks. And May 25th at Cincinnati, 4 innings, got the loss, 5 hits, 4 runs, a walk and a K. So right here, he's only had 1 quality start since April 29th here is Kyle Hendricks. So he's definitely struggling. But like I mentioned, this guy, he definitely could turn things around. And if he gets traded to a contender, he will be very good for fantasy owners. So right now, while he's on the down low, here's Hendricks. I would go out there and make a deal for him. And you really could give up pretty much nothing to get him in a trade, or just pick him up straight off your fantasy baseball free agent pool waiver wires, Hendricks. So he's a guy I would buy this week. The next guy's Ranger Suarez of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Suarez last season, a magical year it was for him with the Phillies in his first season as a starter after coming from the bullpen into the rotation. But so far this season, it's been tough sledding. 43 2/3, 4-3 record, 48 hits, 23 earned runs, 19 walks, 37 strikeouts, 3 quality starts for Suarez, a 4.74 ERA, and a 1.53. So last season, I know those numbers, they were definitely fluky to have an ERA in the 2s for Suarez, but now to be almost at a 5 years, a little bit too high, because he's got pretty good stuff, and the problem for him has been the walks and the home run ball as well. So the last few outings here for Suarez, May 14th at the Dodgers, 7 innings, got the wins, 5 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 6 Ks, a quality start. May 20th, again versus the Dodgers. They got his number second time around. 3 innings, got the loss, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. And then May 25th at the Braves, 4 1/3, got the loss, 6 hits, 5 runs, 4 walks, 4 Ks. So the walks definitely been hurting Suarez here, with 6 walks in his last 2 outings. And he's versus tough lineups with the Braves and the Dodgers. Like I mentioned, with the weather getting warmer as well, these teams who have been struggling, they're going to start hitting the baseball, and these pitchers are just going to have to adjust. I know there's been a dead ball issue this year, but Suarez in this NL East, this division, besides the Mets and the Braves here, you got the Marlins and Nationals, not the greatest at hitting teams. So right now, Suarez, he's only owned in 65% of fantasy leagues. And just like Kyle Hendricks, if he's on your waiver wire, I would go out there and get him, because he's a guy that has shown he could pitch very well. And like I mentioned, besides those 2 good teams in the division, the Marlins and the Nationals, pretty bad at hitting the baseball, besides a couple guys in those lineups where pitchers could pitch around them a little bit and keep that ball in the ballpark and not give up many runs. So right now, while Suarez is struggling over the last 2 or 3 outings, I would go out there and get him, because he's a lefty that definitely could turn things around. And we've seen it last season, him pitch well in the second half of the season for Philly. And the 5th and final pitcher I look to buy and trade for is Max Scherzer of the New York Mets. So right now, this is the lowest, obviously, Scherzer's value is going to be after being placed on the injured list last weekend, after leaving Friday's ball game with an oblique injury. So Scherzer, the timetable for him is 6 to 8 weeks. And at least it wasn't an arm injury. And obliques, they just take time. And it's a tough injury, obviously. So on the season, Scherzer was rolling 49 2/3, 5-1 record, 36 hits, 14 runs, 11 walks, 59 strikeouts, 5 quality starts, a 2.54 ERA, and an 0.95 whip. So right here, he was still on top of his game. I know the ERA a little bit high for Scherzer standards, but we also got to remember he's 38 years old now, is Mad Max, but he still goes out there. He's still one of the best pitchers and competitors in all the game. And right now, while he's on the shelf, probably till mid-July, early August, this is a perfect time to go out there and get him. Obviously, if you're a team up there in the standings and you could wait on him, you make the trade. But if you're a team struggling and down in the bottom half of your standings in your fantasy league, he's probably a guy I wouldn't go out there and get unless it's a dirt cheap move, which it still won't be, but it won't be top value you would be paying for Scherzer like you would have, say, 2 weeks ago before he got injured, because Max, we know he's an ace, and maybe this time off could refresh him as well after a short spring training, obviously, for some of these pitchers, because if he could come back in July or August here and be a top flight guy, he definitely could help the Mets, obviously, second half of the season, and fantasy owners who need the boost. So right now, with the injury and him out for months, I definitely would go out there and try to get Scherzer on a little bit of a discount this week. And that's a few pitchers I look to buy here for Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season.